All right, it's 7, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. Okay, this is the EFF-Austin meetup. Thank you everybody for coming out. My name's Kevin. I'm the event coordinator here. John who's the head of EFF-Austin, John Wachowski. He's normally here as well, but he is on vacation, so I will be flying your ship for this evening. Hopefully, I won't crash us. So, we have a very, I think, cool talk for you tonight. We have Dave Glassco here with us, who's going to be demoing his new product, the Neobase, which basically, I'm going to let him do most of the heavy lifting talking about it, but basically it offers you essentially an alternative to cloud-based social networking, basically. A secure way to manage your data and have complete control over what you share and who you share it with. Yeah, Dave's done a number of cool things over the years. He's worked at cdstreet.com, been a consultant for 605 Network, producer at Satellite Studio. He's also a major advocate for the open internet. He's been the president of the Participatory Culture Foundation for the last 10 years. Also a board member at Mother Jones and other nonprofit advocacy groups. So yeah, pretty cool dude. So I'm going to let Dave take it away here and tell us about the Neobase.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. How did I get into this one?
What are you doing there, man?
That's not on my screen.
Oh man, do I have to call somebody in here to rescue us?
Do you have
Hang
Apple
on
remote?
just a second. Go back and, it logged off.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
There we go.
Save the day soon.
There we go. Let's start here. All right. I went ahead and put together a little presentation to start things off. For a crowd like this, it's going to be a little simple language, but you'll get the idea, and then we can get into the heavy tech as we go. I started this project, I actually started in October of 2012 in development. For about the year before that, I tossed the idea around, ironically with these two, among others, and had met an industrial designer out in San Francisco. And I told him about this product, and he thought it was a pretty good idea, so we did a year of R&D, and then we've done 2 years of development. When I started, this was pre-Snowden. I'll never forget, someone said, no one gives a shit about privacy. And I said, well, I think they will. As you mentioned, I have been the president of an open source foundation, the Participatory, I can't say it. I didn't name it. Participatory Culture Foundation. We're probably best known for the democracy player that turned into Miro, some of you might have heard of. And we've actually turned into a profitable nonprofit by this program called Amara. It's a subtitling for online video. So I had been watching this space for a long time. I'd been aware of the whole AT&T thing in San Francisco, where long before they actually admitted it, anybody who kind of knew network architecture was like, wait a minute, they're tapping the internet. And that really got to me. And most people didn't understand. They said, well, you can't tap the internet. I said, yeah, you can. You just got to have enough resources. And there's one group in this country that does. So I started thinking back to the 90s and Napster. And actually, Snowden himself talks about this in Citizen4, that in the 90s, there was this dream that the internet could be something good, that it would kind of break through the status quo and allow people to communicate on an equal basis. And I was running servers at the time, and I had a home server, and I just kept waiting for this solution to happen. And what I figured out over time was that Google and Apple, they didn't want you to have your information on a home server. They wanted you to have your information on their server. And I didn't like that. And I don't like the idea of every bit of my information being sifted, right? My friend Matt here is actually the engineer at my recording studio. I'm lucky enough to, hi Debbie, so good to see you. So I also have this background in music and friends in the music business that worry very much about files leaking. And so I started thinking to myself, well, no one's made a home server. I wanted a home jukebox / file cabinet that I could access anywhere inside and outside the network. Then I thought to myself, what if my friend had one of these? And that's what started this whole line of thinking. So here's how we sell this product, and here's where we are today. You know, I'm over 40, so I gotta put these on. And this way, this is how we explain it to people. The cloud has a lot of benefits. We all know them. One of my pet peeves is people reading PowerPoints, in this case, Keynote, so you can read. And the cloud is fraught with all these problems, though, right? And you can sum it up by saying you don't really know who's in control of your data. You can't really delete anything. And you never really know who's watching all of it. It's just all out there in the cloud. Right? So after Snowden, with all these recent hacks, whatever you want to call them, people have become much more aware of this. This is from 2014, so you can imagine that people have only gotten more aware of privacy issues, not less aware, in the last year. Obviously, this is examples of the challenges we face. Why should you trust the cloud, basically? And we've seen people starting to move towards a hint of privacy. Unfortunately, they all go through someone else's server. And all of us here probably know that that's how these things work. It's not a decentralized system. You're always going through somebody else. So we started this product with this idea that consumers actually do want control of their privacy and security. And they don't want people looking at their information. But they want to be able to share, they want all the benefits of Facebook. It's nice, right? Share photos of your family, connect with friends. But all of a sudden, before you know it, all these connections are being used to either market to you or manipulate you, depending on your view of those things. So what if you could use a cloudless distributed network to keep your online relationships, blah, 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 right? Key down here, no subscription and is ad-free. From the very beginning, I wanted to follow the Apple model, which is we sell you a great product, we don't make you the product. So this is the Neobase, and this is the 3D printed version I used for a year in development. Now, a unit that looks just like that, except the light's down at the bottom now, has been sitting in my studio for the last couple months. And in fact, I just got it back because the very last stage of all of this was on-device encryption. So we had to kind of wipe, and you'll see my feed is kind of short because of that. This is more of a sell. We want to take back control of our privacy. We want to take it back. We want to be able to share on our terms. Now, this is to kind of explain a decentralized network that I think all of you will understand, but not everyone does, right? There is no central point that the bad guys can hover at. And this is not designed to replace these other sites. Your other social sites will be your social sites. LinkedIn can be your business face. Facebook can be your social face, etc. Twitter for news. But for your close friends and your family, and for the things you'd like to discuss off the corporate record, we've created this. Now, So, at this point in time, let's get out of this and come over here. And first off, what I'll show you is that neat little logo right there is the Neobase logo. And simply by clicking on it, now it happened too quickly, but in essence, what it did was it opened a VPN tunnel. And it opened a VPN tunnel into my Neobase in my house. And here is my feed. In fact, you can see Ashley Kearns is on our marketing team. And I would point out, first off, that everybody you see on this device tonight is hosted on my device. Okay, you can host multiple accounts on every single Neobase. But you can also connect to anyone who has an account on any Neobase. Right, so you can see here that it's just like Facebook, and you can upload pics to comments. This was talking about version numbers this morning. Let's go back up and see. One thing about this, and we'll show in a second, you always choose who you share with. There's no post to your feed where everybody can see. Oh, and there's a little funny for you. We've been a little frustrating in the development cycle lately, and I posted this to the team today. So obviously we support GIFs, and that is all seen from another movie. So let's go back up here, and then you'll see what I mean by this. Okay. All of these users, well, excuse me, Thanos is our lead developer, and he is out in San Francisco, and he has his own Neobase. Matt's sitting here in the front, and he is hosted on my account. So, fun dev pics. Demo pics. Let's start with one, so you can see that. And so the way I always describe this to the non-technical people, and let's see something here, hopefully this bug isn't, is that I always say that, you know, at a party when you take a picture on your phone and you share it on Facebook, it goes from your phone to Facebook to your friend. And in my case, it goes from your phone to your device at your house to your friend in an encrypted tunnel the entire time. It never crosses our servers. It never crosses anybody else's servers, right? So apparently the upload speed here is, oh, that's a pretty big pick, actually. I should pick something else. So we'll let this go through. So, but I think most of you in this room can understand this concept, right? Of avoiding crossing anyone else's servers. And so how do you do this securely? Well, one of the things we looked at originally, some of you probably, here's a crowd that actually has PGP installed, right? Some of you at least, I do. And I've used it twice because no one has PGP, right? And so there it is, there's Krav, our lead iOS developer, and there's Thanos poking out. So when we looked at this problem, all of you are familiar with public-private key encryption. So let's kind of step through how this rolls out. You bring a Neobase home, and you put it on your local network, and you fire up the app, and it uses Bonjour on the Mac and UPnP on Windows to go find it. And when you first fire up that Neobase, it is unencrypted, and anyone can claim it, right? And as soon as you claim it, no one else will ever be able to claim it again. Because what happens when you claim it is that's when it kicks off the point of generating your private key and your public key. So when you set this thing up, it's actually going to go through about a 15-minute process of encrypting your hard drive. Because if we generated the keys before we sent it to you, it wouldn't be very private, would it? Right? So now you, and so it generates the private keys and it hands off the private key to your first computer that you've paired with it. At that point in time, you can add friends. In fact,
yeah, you need to.
Son of a bitch. Okay, let's close this. AirPlay, co-working. And we're back. So let's invite Tracy to be on my machine. Well, I won't use her real email. This will bounce to me, but you'll get the idea. Now down here, the default is to allow someone to create a hosted account on yours. We want people using this system, right? But if you want to send somebody an invite, but you're like, no, you're not being hosted, you get your own Neobase, you can uncheck this, right? And there's also going to be by the way, going blank on the term, out-of-band verification. We're just working out the bugs on that. It will be under these security options. So there's a conceivable man-in-the-middle attack in all of this. It would be very, very targeted, but if you're concerned about that, we are going to give you a way around that. So this is where you can invite somebody else to be on your unit, on your Neobase. And in fact, here we see a little federation error, which may or may not go away. So you can see these people are hosted. So what happens is when I invite them, it looks like a Facebook invite. But embedded in that email is the public key, right? So we've taken creating a public key based communication from like a 20-step process to, in essence, a Facebook invitation. Your mom can communicate with you in an encrypted format and never even know she was doing it, right? And that was our goal. So on top of all of this, you can pair devices. So if you want to add another device to your Neobase, and for your own account, in this case a phone, right? We've got apps for iOS and Android. And I'm going to kind of show you here the preference system, and then I'm going to let Matt pair one of his phones. So you can kind of drill in here, and you can see who's hosted. But under devices, you can see I have 3 devices, my MacBook, Android, and iPhone. Now I'm going to cancel out of this, but basically the way you do it,
You want me to
it's going to generate a QR code for you, all right? And you point your phone at it, and it picks up the QR code. So Matt, why don't you turn on your AirPlay? Now he has unpaired his phone already, and you, on his Mac, is an exact same feed, everything you're seeing, like mine, except it's his account. It's like multiple users on a computer, right? Except in this case, I don't have admin privileges. I can't see into his feed. I can only see what he shares me. So in this particular case, he's going to hit pair with my Neobase, and you'll see the camera pop up, right? There we go. Oh, and it happened so fast that you barely got to see it. Let's see.
It's probably going to take a little bit since.
There it is. Thank you, demo gods. All right. So now that you see connecting securely with Neobase, that was the VPN tunnel. This is pulling from this is basically pulling a web page off of Apache. I like to say that your Neobase is a home server, but we never call it a server because nerds use servers and they're difficult. So it's a Neobase, right? But it's a Linux machine. This thing runs a custom. We stripped down a version of Linux to run on it. Runs on a dual gigahertz ARM chip. It's got I think 2 gigs of memory, which is hurting us on the cogs, and a terabyte drive at this point in time, but that may come down to 500 gigs. We haven't finalized the specs, so don't hold me on that. But you can see now he has access. Go ahead and just scroll through your feed real quick, if you don't mind. So you can see I shared with, go back to the top, everything that I shared with him. See, but now his name is dark. And the beautiful thing, in fact, Matt made a comment one time during the testing of all this. He said he loves having conversations on this thing because he says what's actually as if we were in the room. He would make the comment he would to me in the room because he knows his mom's not going to come on Facebook and see it later, right? So anyway, so you can turn off your AirPlay now. All right. So that's the outline of the system. You can host as many users on your Neobase as you'd like at this point. There's no artificial restriction. We haven't done extensive testing on performance. We had initially thought about putting a cap on it, and everybody assumed we were trying to force people to buy Neobases when in fact we were concerned about people's experience, right? Because most people's home doesn't have much of an upstream bandwidth. You get a bunch of people trying to use one. So, but to eliminate any kind of questions, we say, okay, you can put as many of those on as you want. And anybody that has an account on there can pair as many mobile devices as they want. The one restriction is hosted users can't invite other users to create accounts. They can only connect with people that already have an account on the Neobase they're on or another Neobase. Obviously, we would like people to buy Neobases. But we also want people to use the system. So it's we're kind of torn here. Because, like I said, I'm the president of a nonprofit. But this is not a nonprofit. This is a business, and we need to sell units in order to build this platform. And the last thing I'll say, and I won't pull up the presentation, is that right here, right now, we have a really incredibly useful product. But if we can get enough momentum behind this and get a number of people posting their friends on these Neobases, we have an opportunity, as my mother said one day, who's not very technical. She said, "You're trying to create another web." And I said, "You're right. I would never be, that big-minded, but in a way you're right, because these Neobases communicate with each other. They tell each other their IP addresses. So if your IP changes at home, it federates the IP chain, right? So we're not dependent on DNS systems, right? You don't have to go to neoni.com/Dave. That you can't be taken out that way. And we got it back. And we went with SSH rather than SSL because certificates can be revoked and they cost money and there's a whole bunch of hassles behind them and they're broken. So other than that, they're okay. But as I tell people, when you log onto your bank site, you're using SSL and we use SSH and that's better. And every security guy would tell you that. So maybe I missed some details. It's hard to catch everything. I think I've given a pretty broad view. So let's open up the floor to questions. And if you weren't here earlier, the unit that I currently have is at my house down in South Austin. So the only one I have is the 3D printed version. Now this has the exact same board and everything. I used this for a year. It weighs the same. Please don't drop it. You can pass it around. Obviously, the final product has a much more complete finish and would look like an Apple product. So who wants to get started?
So a standard firewall in a home router will deny all external attempts to connect in. How do you get through that? How do you configure that to make it?
We have a really great process that piggybacks on UPnP. So, and our batting average is around 80–90%, and we bought a ton of routers, right? And we've tried this because this was my greatest fear from the beginning. When I first started this product, I wanted it to be a router because I know how confusing routers can be. You got double NATs, you got firewalls. Luckily, most modern routers support UPnP out of the box, and we request a port forward that doesn't change. And if it does, it notifies everybody else. And our success has been pretty well. When you originally set this up, I mentioned going through the encryption process, but there's a couple other steps. It'll check for downloads, and it will try to automatically configure your firewall. If it fails, it will give you a couple of easy steps like this UPnP on, right? And then it will say either call tech support, or if you know what you're doing, click here, and it will give you all the information you need to configure your router. So we hired a tech support company here in Austin for just this reason, because it's the one thing out of our control, right? I mean, that's the only part of the experience we can't have any say in. And we all know there's lots of places with double NATs. And so it's a challenge. But when it is configured correctly, in fact, we couldn't get Tracy's working because of double NAT.
What's a double NAT?
It's when you have a router inside of a router. So in other words, the most common problem is, let's say you bring home an Airport Express, and out of the box, and you set it up to be your DHCP server, the thing that's handing out the addresses to everything on the local network.
Right.
Well, if you plug that into, Evil Corp's modem router.
You mean Time Warner?
Exactly.
Or
whatever you want to call it.
Take your pick.
The Globex Corporation. They're going to be they're going to be trying to be a DHCP router as well.
Right.
And so when you have two of those in the chain, it can cause some problems. Now, the issue we have for most consumers, as in the case of Tracy, is your web and your email will work under a double NAT. You're going to be getting a worse experience, but because it works, you're not going to notice it as much, right? So there are some challenges. But we have 4 patents pending, and one of the ones I'm most proud of is this notion of how you keep track of everybody. So if you have your Neobase, and I have my Neobase, and we're not on static IPs, right? So how do you deal with that? Well, that's what I said at the beginning. What if we both had servers? Well, we could talk to each other if we knew the IP, and if the IP changed, we could send it to the guy who still knew, right?
Right.
Now another patent that's pending is, okay, well wait, what happens if they both fail, right? What if there's a power outage and both our routers come up and we have new WAN IPs. We thought about this, and then one day we realized you already have an encrypted relationship with me, right? So there's 2 times your Neobase will contact our servers. One is to look for software updates, and the other is, in this particular case, you will leave an encrypted note to the people connected with you, and their Neobases, after failing a few times, will go to this locker, find the encrypted note that has your current IP, and reconnect and delete the note. Now, while that information is on our server, we can't read it because we don't have your public keys. It's encrypted. So, I mean, this is the level of detail. Thanos drove me nuts sometimes, like, well, wait a minute, you got a data leak there. So, I mean, we have really, really tried to build this product in such a way to respect your privacy in every way we can while providing a solution that's consumers expect. It has to be easy. It has to work, right? And this is complicated stuff. And if you're on a social network, if you want to share, by definition, it's not private. So what we're really trying to say is it's private among your friends, right? I mean, we can't guarantee your friends are not going to copy the picture you share and send it somewhere else. All we can say is, like, we had this phrase, we can't protect you from your friends, right? We can try to protect you from everything else, which kind of leads me, there was a phrase I came up with early on in this that I think kind of explains the thinking on this. And it was that we kind of face 3 forms of surveillance in modern society. I call it social, corporate, and governmental, right? Social surveillance is, I saw you pic on Facebook, you were in Austin, why didn't you call me? You know, this inability to control our information. Corporate surveillance is actually better known as a business model, ad supported, right? And that's Facebook looking at everything you do. That's Google looking at everything you do. And then there's governmental surveillance. And then I kind of cut that in half and say there's mass surveillance and there's targeted surveillance, right? Well, mass surveillance can only happen with centralized systems. By the way, one of the reasons your email can be read is because you have abandoned it on a server that's on your premises. Did y'all know that? So bringing the Neobase in your house actually gives you legal protections against surveillance. Now, as far as targeted surveillance, I've often been asked, you know, are you saying this is NSA proof? I said, no. First off, we have a system on a chip from Freescale. It's a great chip. It's got Wi-Fi, Ethernet, nothing else that we wanted. But I don't build that chip. I don't know if the NSA has a deal with Freescale. I don't know what's in what chip. So I'm not going to make a promise that I can't keep, right? And I don't want to live in a Russian airport. So I didn't want to go that far. Because there's always, it's the terrorists and pedophiles, terrorists and pedophiles, terrorists and pedophiles. Anytime you talk about encryption. I was recently talking to a government official about this, and I said, you know, I can understand why people would be concerned about that. However, given the fact that, you know, I can't make it NSA proof, and this is a centralized repository of all your connections and what you've said, probably not the best solution, right? You could also make the argument that those 2 things can be enabled through any form of technology. And the way I put it to this government official is, we protect children by protecting children, not by eliminating society's ability to communicate securely. I said, it's right there. We want to be secure in our letters. I'm not a radical, you know, but I do believe that this is important. Culture needs an ability to communicate with itself unwatched. Otherwise, we watch what we think. Questions?
Yeah. How does Neobase compare to OwnCloud?
To OneCloud?
OwnCloud. I kind of set up my own cloud server, encrypt everything myself, have that for my calendar management, for my contacts, for everything. I can even change some own cloud servers to other own cloud servers.
Oh, absolutely. There's absolutely no doubt that you could roll your own kind of solution.
In fact, actually, I want to springboard on that, that actually one of the you know, of course it's Reddit, but when I let everybody know about this on Reddit, one of the cynical criticisms of your product basically was you're offering an encrypted content management system, which already exists. What differentiates this?
Wait, hold on. There is an encrypted content management system that exists?
Well,
I mean, this is the argument. Okay, look, I can say this because I've actually helped build open source software that is successful and some that has failed. Okay? I consider myself a geek. Open source people are really good at building software for themselves, and they really suck at building software for other people. That's my personal opinion.
No, that's
Okay? And my goal was to do exactly what you talked about. I didn't want to have to go build my own server. I didn't want to have to go chase all these dependencies, and I wanted my mother to be able to use it. Good luck doing that with Linux. Good luck. I mean, you see, it's not a matter of whether you can do it, right? It's a matter of whether it's easy to do. Is it easy enough to do to work that the ordinary person is going to want to use this thing? You talk to the EFF, you talk to the ACLU, and people want the world to move to an encrypted communication. You talk to government officials, okay? And they are worried about business espionage, right? So there has been this desire to get us encrypted. Now we have moved the web towards encryption, right? But we have not moved personal communications towards encryption, right? So how do you get the masses to start communicating in such a way that it helps all of our rights? Because I'll tell you a story. It was for a major organization. They asked me to do a security review and check out all their systems, and I did. I came back and I reported. I said, "You have amazing systems. You've got this outsourced, this company takes care of your firewall. You have encrypted email. It's all perfect, and your executive team forwards everything to their Gmail account." Yep. Right? Because it's easier. It's like, well, we can't protect you from your friends. So once again, this goes back to this notion of what was the impetus for doing this? Well, I wanted it for myself, right? I trade music files from my studio all the time. I have friends that are in songwriting clubs, and they send out tracks every single week, and they comment on them. They're all thrilled about this because they don't want these things leaking. A Fight for the Future, two of their founders were board members at PCF, and I'll tell you, Fight for the Future has been using a Neobase for internal communications for months. And not surprisingly, I have gotten some calls from the government. Luckily, because they're interested, and not because they're mad.
Yeah. So why did you choose to build hardware instead of, say, an Amazon Web Services image or something like that, so you could avoid all the reliability issues with home networks?
Amazon.
Because I wanted to make my life as difficult as possible for years as it is right now. The answer is it just goes back to the most fundamental things. If it's not on your server, all you got is a promise.
Well, if you use an encrypted file system, Amazon isn't a password to.
Yep.
Yes, that has been an argument. But once again, Amazon also has legal responsibilities as far as requests.
They have to turn over the encrypted image.
And yeah, so I mean, look, absolutely. But I felt like that to sell software, why is software moving to a subscription model? Because you can't make any money on it. You got to continue development somehow.
You're selling support at that point.
You are selling support, and that's a really thin margin thing. I wanted to create this system that was outside the control. I mean, that would work, but think about my system. It doesn't rely on a DNS system. It doesn't rely on the current certificate system, right? So there's no way, Apple has been known over the last 15 years for wanting to own everything that they're dependent upon, right? and I can't own everything we're dependent upon. I just didn't want to be dependent on anything. Right? It's to make it as tamper-proof as possible. Right? That, you know, your service can't be shut down by an external force. Plus, I think hardware is cool. And I've been a tech investor since the 90s, and my one rule is invest in hardware, not software. And it paid off. And by the way, I would point out that in my book, early on, Google was a hardware company. Why? Because they had server farms back in the day, and they were building their own servers, right? So I mean, the way I think about hardware is a little bit different, but still, something tangible, something physical. And here, I'll tell you another thing. I'll never forget, I put out a CD in 1996, and I shared it with a guy who's on the board of Neoni, actually. And he calls me 2 weeks later, he has a tech company in Houston. He says, Dave, everybody in the office loves your band. I said, well, that's great. I just set up this store at cdstreet.com. They can all go buy the CD. He says, oh, don't worry, we ripped it and put it on the server. I said, what does that mean? And what I realized at the time was that if your friends would steal your intellectual property, and I'm sorry, that's how it felt at the time. I had paid musicians to make that record. I'd paid for CDs to be printed, right? And I realized that anything that could be turned into zeros and ones can be easily copied, and I didn't want to invest in anything that's main products could be converted to zeros and ones. And that investment philosophy paid off, right? So the software business for me is just an impossible business. Everyone wants something for free. People can copy you very quickly. They can steal your code very quickly. What they cannot do is design a hardware product very quickly.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I was curious, speaking of impossible, how do you keep all these devices updated? Is it something that's automatic, or is it something that the users will actually?
The question was about how do we keep them updated. As I kind of glossed over it, but we really wanted to eliminate any sort of central server. We wanted this to be a decentralized system, right? But for security reasons, feature reasons, you really need people to be able to update. So there is just like in Apple, you'll go and you'll see, hey, there's an update. And do you want to run it, right? So that your Neobase will contact our servers to download updates. We have talked about having these updates available through third-party sites with checksums, but I got a team of less than 15 people. We've got 7 software stacks, and we're trying to get it out the door. So for right now, you're gonna have we have a trustworthy way of updating your Neobase.
Users are definitely, I guess, prompted officially.
Absolutely. I mean, we're not in the iOS App Store right now. We will be next week. We'll be in the Play Store. We're not in the Mac App Store or Windows Store, but you'll get automatic upgrade notices every once in a while.
And are those upgrades going to be mandatory, or would you have any option to opt out of one you didn't like?
That's a good question.
Well, thinking of Windows 10, I think it's an important question.
Absolutely, because, and this is something we've talked about, we haven't granularized that process yet. Not for a lack of thought, not because we don't see the need. We're not going to be shoving Windows 10 on, okay? We're going to be making it work better, and we're going to be providing more features. That being said, you know, I also in the studio running Pro Tools, you learn to not upgrade, right, until you absolutely have to. So I have a lot of sympathy for that, and I don't want, we don't want to get a situation where you're forced to upgrade. Perhaps what we can do is start separating out feature and security updates. We might look into something like that. I mentioned the 7 stacks. Let's just go over those real quick. Number 1, we've got what we call Neos, which is a stripped down Linux, customized around our hardware. That's 1. 2 is the, we call it the social network app, but what you saw. It's Python app written in Django that does all that magic you see. So that's stack number 2. Stack number 3 is the cloud software that has to forward invitations, do some back handling, there's some things, do upgrades, do the vault thing. And then the other 4 are Mac, Windows, iOS, and Android. And iOS and Android are combination wrapper and native things. We do the SSL, the initial connection, the preferences all native. Your feed is a web view. So it's the same feed that's getting pulled into your computer.
I'm curious about the, so you've read, or have you heard anything about the recent compromise of encryption? Did he help me correct?
I was going to ask about that.
Because one of my concerns is that while the device, and that's why I was going to touch on your argument of, yes, you can encrypt your data fine, but if the encryption is compromised, it does no good. So with that being mentioned, are you guys going to be going back to, are y'all using the current compromised encryption scheme, or are you going to be looking at to change that up to elliptical curve? Or just answer that first, and I have another question.
Gotcha. Okay. Here's what I would say about that. We've had an outside firm, Leviathan, if anybody knows it, although it's not authorized or endorsed, but that is who did it. And my understanding, because this is a little outside my realm, that we passed that test. I am aware of what you're talking about. I'll give you my card later. I can put you in touch with Thanos, and he'll be able to give you the specific answer. But this is something we're on top of, and a lot of encryption standards have been broken. But we started this relatively recently, and Thanos is on this all the time. So a qualified yes. I don't like giving answers that I'm not sure about, but a qualified yes. We are not part of the broken old system. So, like I said, I'm happy to give you an exact technical answer on a follow-up.
Awesome. And then the second question being, are your hard drives going to be solid state, or are they going to be spindles? The reason I ask is that encryption and SSDs, one of my friends informed me very thoroughly that it degrades the longevity of the device.
Well, the original plan was for SSDs. However, you get caught in a problem here. I just got a pricing survey back, right? And we go through and we ask these people, if there was a device that did A, B, and C, how much would you pay for it? And we're kind of, they call it anchoring, but we're kind of anchored by free. For most people, Facebook is, quote, free. It's not, right? So, in comparable products, the new Google router, Airport Extreme, Nest, these types of devices are all $199, right? That's tough, right? Because if you're inside that device, there's a system on a chip, 2 motherboards, a hard drive, a Wi-Fi chip, an Ethernet chip. I mean, this is real hardware. I mean, you're getting a miniature Linux computer. This runs circles around a Raspberry Pi or a Qbox, right? And you can terminal into it, right? It's Linux. Once you've got the keys, we've had people playing around with running other services, but it's not something we're going to support. Okay? We're going to try. I got in kind of an argument with John Gilmore, who's kind of an intimidating person to get in an argument with. But I was getting a little annoyed about this notion of open source. Anyway, it's a long conversation. I probably should leave him out of the conversation. We had some disagreements about, basically what I said to him is like, look, I'm the president of an open source foundation. I believe in open source. This is not an open source project. This is a business that is going to try to operate in the most open way possible, in the most respectful way of your privacy possible. Because that's what I want people to treat me, right? I can't give away my software, I can't give away my R&D and stay in business. I just, look at Apple in the 90s. They tried to do the R&D on the operating system and they got their knees cut out from underneath them. We're going to publish our code, right? We'll look over every line of the code. But it's not going to be freely commercial, it's not going to be an open source license. we're going to let you tunnel into your machine. It's your machine. You should be able to dick around with it, right? I don't want to lock this thing down. I want to see what people do with it, which just kind of gets to this vision. What I really would love is if there's enough of these connected, what you have is a platform. And that's what everybody dreams of creating, is a platform. I mean, once you have the plumbing you saw that uploaded a picture is the same plumbing that would send a video conferencing signal, that would send messages. We already have neochat.com. It's just a different form of commenting, right? We could have a separate app that ran through your same Neobase. We got a lot. I mean, hell, I wanted this thing to be a media server, right? I helped create an open source media player. But there's a concept called MVP, minimal viable product. Everybody watch Silicon Valley? That's been my life the last 3 years. I didn't know any of these business terms. And then the first season, each episode is a business term that now I know. One of them is minimal viable product. And the idea is that instead of taking the Windows-like approach of like, here are the 100 features that are going to be in this product, whether they work or not, right? No, we want these features in the product and they are going to work. And when we get those working, then we'll add some others. Yeah.
So I guess I have a bit of a UI question. So is everything going to be in a feed? Because I understand the stuff that would I rather everything on Facebook be my private information, sure. But I don't care about the stuff, my jokes to my friends on my fantasy football group on Facebook, I don't really care if that's private.
Right.
But so the stuff that I care about, social security numbers,
right.
Cross, maybe some naked pictures, that kind of stuff is the stuff is that just all gonna be, is it gonna be my bank info that I sent to my dad, followed by some risque pictures just scrolling through my feed, or what kind of stuff do you anticipate people sharing?
All of those things. I mean, honestly, anybody see John Oliver's thing about privacy? No one cared until they started talking about junk pictures.
Yeah, that's exactly why I asked.
Okay. In fact, I think we were talking to a marketing firm, and I said we're going to use, because we want to hit this, some selfies should stay private, right? There are lots of cases. Every lawyer that's ever worked on this project is like, can we do one? Doctors, families here's a case that, lots of people are so concerned about kid pictures. In our surveys, you just want to believe how the response from parents, right? And it sounds a little weird, but they just don't want their kid pics out there. They don't want to lose control, but they want to share 30 pics with their mom. And so we've had an enormous response from, in fact, we were kind of stunned in our survey. We had a survey of over 800 people recently, and there were more female respondents that made it through the filter than male. We've had interest from a Hollywood production that's working, and they want the crew to be able to share on a social network without it being a social network. So, to answer your question about organization, I lost my Wi-Fi signal, and they didn't save the password in there for me, so I can't. But if you noticed on the left-hand column, you might have seen it said collections and photos. Well, originally it was supposed to be photos, movies, music, and documents. Because one of the things I didn't show in there is that you can add attachments, any PDF, any file that you can attach. And so we trade a lot of our internal documents, like the iOS submission video. I didn't email it to them or Dropbox it. I just put it as an attachment to a post. So going back to some of the creative people I know, I think these are the type of things. Your jokes about your fantasy football, that's why I said Facebook's still your public face, right? LinkedIn's still your business face. Twitter is your ADHD face.
And this is more so just for even though it's not literally your private space, because you are sharing it, it's basically a private space, so to speak.
Right, you can use the example, I told a story earlier about getting my CD ripped, and people have asked me about that. This seems kind of pro-piracy. We won't get into all that, but my personal moral compass is divided like this. If you're sharing with everybody in the world, that's piracy. If you're sharing with selected friends, that's sharing. That's my compass. I'm not saying it's the ultimate truth, but we've had a lot of people. One of our developers, for example, he loves trading music files with a bunch of his friends, MP3 files, right? They keep up on this, they buy a ton of records. They've been using Dropbox for us. Until Dropbox sent them a notice that one of their files have been checksummed and to stop sharing that group of zeros and ones.
Yeah, that's kind of creepy.
Right? So this developer, now during our beta, one of the test groups was his group of music sharers. Right? So they're sharing, hey, here's a new band from so-and-so, from Denmark. Now, is that wrong? I don't know. My moral compass says it's not. So I'll give you, I'll drop one name here because it's kind of funny. There was a movie a while back, a documentary called The Right Feeling Wronged. It was by HBO. It was an HBO show, and it was done by Nancy Pelosi's daughter. And it's really awesome. And I wanted a lot of my friends to see it because I thought it was funny and I thought it was insightful. And I thought it was relevant to the political discussion. But you couldn't buy it. HBO didn't have an HBO Now at the time. This was 3 or 4 years ago. So the one time I illegally downloaded a movie was that one. As luck would have it, one time I was having a conversation with Nancy Pelosi. And she asked me, she said, why does it seem like the north of California is at war with the south of California? And I said, well, it's pretty simple. Nerds look at systems and try to eliminate inefficiencies. But what they call an inefficiency, you might call your business or your industry, right? And I said that what you're really doing right now is there's a competition over distribution systems, right? That the coaxial cable that comes out of your wall, if it goes in a cable box, they sell you movies and music and channels. If it goes in a cable modem, they don't sell you anything. And I told her, I said, the only movie I've ever downloaded was your daughter's. And she got really, I said, because I couldn't buy it. I wanted to give your daughter money and I couldn't, so I downloaded it anyway, because I thought it was important, right? You'll see videos that come up on YouTube that are political in nature, maybe they're a remix, and then you go back to look at them and they're gone because somebody somewhere said they broke the rules, right? So how do you get in a position, how do you trade information and knowledge in a world without somebody filtering you and telling you, no, you can't share that group of zeros and ones. You can only share these other groups of zeros and ones. Sometimes it's too important. Information wants to be free. I don't mean that in an economic way. I think a better way of putting that is knowledge wants to be free. As an artist, I don't think art should be free, right? I don't think we should pirate movies. I don't think there's a lifetime of free music and videos to watch. So that's my thing. So Debbie, you had a
I
question?
just wanted to clarify, I think you were asking about the layout. And you could see the
Right.
theme.
Yeah, okay. Once again, MVP. What you're looking at is leading up to 1.0. I would love to get more filters on this feed. I would love to get more features. And I think we have a good path forward. I mean, we have actual Neobases that are being manufactured right now that when they go on sale on November 11th, if you're one of the first X number of people, you will get one for Christmas. This is not vaporware, right? This is not a Kickstarter that's going to be delivering maybe next year. These are the I just was in San Francisco and was watching the drives flashed with the latest operating system to go out to the testers. So we have over 100 units that we're going to be testing with a little over 30, but we're also seeding them with some influencing groups. I'm happy to give one to EFF-Austin to try for a while if you want, and you can load up your friends.
And I'll talk to John about that.
There you go. I mean, I'm happy to do that. And if you represent an organization that is into this sort of thing, let me know. We probably have 20 or 30 Neobases that we can let out. Remember, each one can host a bunch of people. I am not thrilled with the lack of ability to organize your information. I'm pretty OCD. I went to school, I went to UT from 85 to 89 and bought my first Mac because it had spell checking. And I was a government major. I thought that was the most awesome thing in the world. And I still can pull up my old Word files from my papers in 1989 because they went from floppies to whatever the one before Jazz drives was zip drives, then Jazz drives, then RAIDs. So, I mean, I get it. I mean, the plumbing was more difficult to work out than we anticipated. It works. You can see it working. There's 4 patents. The guy, I'll tell you a quick story. Went into the patent meeting, nerdy PhD in astrophysicist, and he says, well, you know, my biggest claim to fame is I wrote the patents that stood up against Samsung for the iPhone. I was like, really? I'm glad you're here. And he says, yeah, I got to go down to the vault, and I knew they had a hit because after the first day I wanted one, right? And at the end of the day, he said, we have 4 patents here. I believe, he said, we have probably 8, but 4 really strong ones. I said, well, you've seen them for a day, do you want one? He said, yeah. So there's been a lot of foundation work. An analogy I use is when you build a high-rise, you have to drill down and sink the pylons, and you have to build the garage, you have to build the structure, you run the plumbing, the electrical, and you get all the windows in, and then you start building the rooms. We have one hell of a high-rise built. We can add a lot of stories to it. The plumbing's secure, the electrical's secure. We're still filling out the details. What was your question?
So how have you funded this so far?
As I mentioned, I was a tech investor. And I was lucky enough to have the resources to invest starting in the 90s and was smart enough to put them in the right companies. I self-funded this for the first half of the project and then brought in another private investor. So I don't owe VC anything at this point. As soon as you start owing VC, they start telling you how to monetize the user.
Your company.
It's not your company. We want to protect that. This is kind of a moonshot. I'm not saying this is like an easy sell. It's going to take a little change in behavior. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. We've tried to make it as viral as possible. We've tried to make it as affordable as possible. But, people are funny. And I hope that we've come up with a good enough combination to at least get people to add this into the tools they're using, right? People change. Anybody says things don't change, I just say MySpace. That was my first social network. And people are becoming more and more aware of this issue. Mothers, kids, our surveys show an incredible interest and incredible desire. There's a skepticism because everything seems like vaporware. There's a gotcha. Right? I'm hoping there's no gotcha. I just need to start selling these things and get the ball rolling. I sell you a unit. I don't know who your friends are. I don't know what you're sharing. I don't know how often you use it. I'm not running analytics on it. We may add into the operating system an opportunity to help us with some of these analytics, but it will be an opt-in, and you'll see all the data, but we didn't want that going out the door because everyone's suspicious, right? So how do you back it up? The desktop app that I showed you, that I clicked on the thing, does automatic backups.
Oh, nice.
We also, where is the unit? Where did it end up? If you look on the back, there's a USB port. We are going to be building in other forms of backup. We absolutely had to have one off the bat. When you actually, one thing during the initial setup, you will stick a USB thumb drive that we provide in there, and it will back up your private keys. Okay. So on the off chance that one of the things that happens is you pair your laptop, and then something goes haywire in your laptop. Now you don't have any device paired to a private device that's not going to let anything in. So because we don't store your keys, you gotta have a backup. There's no way for us to reset your password, and we didn't want people, I mean, people are not gonna be happy about that. So we're gonna say, look, well, we gave you the opportunity to get out of this mess, and that's all we can do. We use an analogy. If you bought a safe for your house, would you expect the company to be able to reset the combination?
So you mentioned that you're based on a stripped down version of an open source product.
Right.
But you're not open source. You mentioned that you want to be viral, but you sound like you're running a proprietary business. You say you're building hardware, not software, but clearly you've built some software.
Right.
Could you say something about your business plan and how you plan to rectify all those things?
I don't think I reconcile. I think it's maybe what we, not to make fun, I think I do that too. No, I get this. And I understand. This is what I was saying earlier about being as open as possible as a proprietary company. I've looked at this problem from a lot of different angles. I got people trying to talk me into being a software model, and we really examined it. Okay, you get into subscriptions, now we have your information, we're charging your card, right? It's not private. This is what I went around with Gilmore on, and he said, no, well, you know, what's his name? Cory Doctorow, gives away his books. What he didn't realize is, I'm on a board with Cory, and I've met him, talked to him twice in 10 years because he never shows up at the board meeting. So I pointed out to him that, and he also mentioned that he had a software company and that they did the support license. I said, well, let's be clear. You started that company that gave away his software with the funds from Sun, which sold proprietary hardware and software, right? And now you're in a subscription service, so it's not private. And as far as Cory goes, right? He's writing a book. There's zero distribution cost. And I can tell you from experience, the same model goes for the music business. There's always going to be some artist that says, hey, look, I'm making a living doing it this way. I'm like, yeah, show me the other 99% of the people doing it. So there is a rub here. You want to be open, but you want the business to survive, because if the business doesn't survive, there is no platform. We have made this decision to go this route. Were there other routes? Yes, and we examined a lot of them. We felt—
I wasn't questioning your motivation, just your implementation. I mean, are you going to release some portion of the open source that you're depending on your website? Are you going to, do you clearly delineate between what is open and what isn't?
Yeah, in fact, one of the things we've done is an open source code review. So we've gone line by line, and this is part of the Leviathan. So everything we're using is BSD or an equivalent. It is not in a license that requires us to open it for our use. For reference, all the PCF software is GPL2. I think GPL3, I have bad feelings about the GPL3. There's a difference between trying to motivate people and trying to enforce a perspective. And, the old adage of everything's a nail. Well, if you're an open source purist, you're a fucking hammer in my experience, and I get tired of it, honestly. And you're not giving me that attitude. I've just gotten it a lot. And I said to Gilmore, it's like, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Everyone's complaining that we can't communicate securely. Everyone's complaining that there's no easy way to get people to do this, right? I just spent a whole hell lot of my money producing a system that I'm going to try to sell you a product that you like, that there's absolutely no way I can track you with. No, I'm not going to give away the software, because I don't feel like I can stay in business. I'm going to let you look at the software. I'm going to let you verify that it does what it says it's going to do. I'm going to let you look at the source code. And we have talked about open sourcing parts of our system, but it's kind of like letting the whatever out of the barn, the genie out of the bottle. It's not, you know, and these things take a lot of time to go through, and you make sure you have all these rights, and you think these things through. We've been trying to build 7 software projects, and we are hoping that in the long run, look, if we establish, I mean, I would love to open source it, but I'm not going to do it if it kills the company. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sure.
So I'll get you into like, I really do want to answer.
Yeah, has Chumby been at all informative?
Chumby, no. I am not familiar with Chumby.
It was a embedded internet appliance, sort of a smart alarm clock.
Oh, yeah, you know, there's been a bunch of these things. Someone mentioned Diaspora, right, that had all sorts of security leaks and all sorts of problems, and you had to have a PhD to get it working.
Well, Chumby wasn't that. Chumby made up for that by being partially proprietary.
Okay, so I think that maybe, in fact, I had a slide about competitors. There were some other cloud-based products that did things different ways. But this is the path that we've picked, and you as a consumer are either going to have to accept that bargain that, yes, I'm, owning all the cards on the table, so no one thinks we haven't implemented it yet, but there are security reasons for having this. There is an identifier chip so in other words, when you connect with another Neobase, it will verify that that's a Neobase. These are really small little chips. But so even if in other words, you could take our published code, compile it, run it on your Linux machine, and create your own private network. But you couldn't connect any Neobases. I gotta protect the business, right? That's as open as I can be. I think that's pretty damn open compared to most companies. So,
outside of, because I understand your perspective in regards to, keeping the source closed and still allowing people to review it. But outside of that, one thing that I'm always concerned about from any open source perspective, if you're going to use something, you're at least going to provide back at least like monetary or financially to I would hope any product that you're using now that is open source. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not worried about you giving code back as much as I am you providing something back to something that is helping you develop your business.
Yeah, Apple runs into, I know exactly what you're saying. I've been a long time Apple fan, and one of the reasons I invested in them early was I actually thought they were the one company, this was like in the late 90s, that was poised to kind of surf that wave, like benefit from open source. But they kept Aqua at the time. I don't know if they still call the GUI layer Aqua. But basically they ran on BSD core, right? And they get a lot of crap, right? They get a lot of crap for doing that. They say, okay, well, you're not giving back the community. In Apple's case, we use Bonjour to find your Neobase.
Well, cups
right.
as well as like for language training. So what I mean is like.
So the answer is, I agree that companies that benefit from open source software should support open source software. That's in essence what you're saying.
Yeah.
Have we gotten to that point yet? We're not making any money.
Well, of course, I'm just saying in the future.
In the future, trust me, if we are successful, I'm going to use those funds to help my nonprofit that builds open source software. Okay, that's what I want to do. The only reason I chose a commercial on this one is because I didn't see it succeeding as an open source project. Because you need to get enough money in this thing. Look, has anybody seen the Freedom Box? Remember that thing that came out? Okay, there you go. A lot of people have said, well, one guy in particular said, you're making an Apple version of the Freedom Box. I said, that's exactly what we're doing. I remember that concept, but I'm going back to geeks make products for Greeks and not for other people. That's Diaspora, that's that. That's the Freedom Box. And look, I love tinkering around with stuff too, or I did before I got this busy.
I feel you there.
Now I like things to just work,
Yep.
right? People in the studio, here's the thing about open source. Perfect for horizontal markets, terrible for vertical markets. In other words, if there's an app that everybody needs, like a word processor, great. Open source can give you a really good, now pretty good replacement. But there's not an open source solution for Pro Tools or video editing or these types of things, because it takes a business to focus on that and provide that great solution, right? It's just, that's my personal view, and to me, it's the strength, to make sure that no one's going to corner the thing we all need, right? And I don't have any problem paying people for Pro Tools. It rocks. We most of the time when we don't upgrade systems. And but you see my point is that there's a benefit, I think, to both models, and there's needs that can be served by both. In that we all benefit. I mean, I don't care if you use an Android device, you use OS 10, you're benefiting from open source software, and you're using a proprietary system. And don't give me that crap that Android's open, because it's not. And it's also a security nightmare, right? People talk about walled gardens. Well, you know why you have a walled garden in the old days? To keep all the critters out, and the vines, and the weeds, so that you could have a nice experience. It wasn't to imprison you. It was so that you could have a nice experience, right? And that's where I think that walled garden thing falls down. It's my choice to walk into the walled garden. And so long as the rules of the garden are ones that I agree with, I'm happy to be there. And then I'll go out and use open source software. I'll go do something else for what's not provided there. But I think there's a tendency in the open source world to dismiss the value of those simple solutions. And that's why 2005 was going to be the year of Linux, and 2006 was going to be the year of Linux, right, on the desktop. It won the servers because that's what geeks use. We build the tools for geeks. Any other?
Yeah, it seems like this is going to be really popular with dark web guys.
Mm-hmm.
So start getting a bunch of orders from Eastern Europe.
How's
that going to work?
But I'm going to ship them to them. The dark web already exists, but once again, we can pull out the boogeyman. You know who I would love to ship these things to? To Egyptian protesters. Yep. You know who two of the influencers are who already want one of these things? Because it's a long story. People live in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, for every, the terrorists are going to get it, or the child pornographers are going to get it. There's stories like this where those protesters aren't going to be able to function without something like this, or they'll be able to function in a much greater.
And I would also make the argument that if you are one of those terrorist pedophile people, you're not going to want to download automatic software updates from me.
And then if you are one of those individuals, most likely you already are doing stuff to be, because there's only, there's
right.
tons of
right.
Sort of,
I mean, I said from the beginning, I don't want to create a dark web. I don't think I have. I've created a secure web, or at least a much more secure web than the one we're currently using to communicate, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it would be huge for small. I run a small company that I want one for exactly this reason.
This is what I'm saying. We did it.
I don't want on Facebook or Slack or anything else.
We have gotten this from, like I said, the lawyers all said it. Our creative people.
Yeah, especially anything proprietary.
Anything proprietary. Good. A dear friend of mine has a record label out in LA. He was thrilled about this because he's got to trade graphic files with album designers and mixes with bands. And what do we do right now? How do we communicate? We share one way and we discuss another, for the most part, with the exception of Basecamp. So in other words, we share a Dropbox file and we start an email chain, right? This gets it all in one place. And in fact, it doesn't. In fact, if it's in one place, it's in your control. It's not in one place on Google servers. It's in one place on yours.
And as you mentioned, it's actually physically on your property.
It's physically on your property that has legal implications as well.
Well, and also I would say that if someone's using this for some dark purpose, they get caught by the police through other means, all their friends are on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
eventually
that's the goal.
That's my point.
Anybody innocent caught up in it, you know, it's a.
Right, I mean, it's kind of, you know, I know, let's put our criminal organization on this product that keeps track of everything we do and talk about. You know? I'm sure it will never get broken by the NSA. That's just not gonna happen. Right? I just don't buy that. But what I do buy is that moms are gonna feel secure sharing their pictures with their grandparents. And I don't wanna pull out the kid card like, oh, marketing terms. These are real concerns. You know, a lot of my dev team has kids. We had the don't hire under 30 policy. Apparently, that wasn't by choice. It just kind of looked up one day. These are real concerns, and as you get older, you start thinking about these things more, about job interviews. Who's going to look at your Facebook profile? Who's going to be able to Google that thing you don't want them to Google? Right? That offhand comment on a fantasy football league could cost you a job.
And then I guess one aspect I like of the device is that it kind of, it's like letting someone into your home. So you won't let anybody to your home that you don't necessarily trust, so therefore you won't necessarily let people into your device that you don't know or wouldn't trust or whatever.
I mean, in essence, in a way, it is a truly social network.
Yeah, a real one because
it's
what you can contact anyone regardless.
Bingo. It is a network of only your social connections. It's not a network of your social connections through a third party. The network is your social connections. That's the concept. I said at the beginning, sometimes I said, well, if you took Dropbox, Napster, and Facebook and threw them in a blender, that's what we were going for. Now, we gotten all I would love to have more Dropbox-like features. File organization, so that your social security number is not on your feed. I would love to have that be one. And it's on the development roadmap. It's just a matter of building that feature in. I want to have collections. I want to be able to just upload my movies to my movie collection and then share that documentary with you. Yeah.
So I guess maybe the next, where do you see this going in terms of the version 2? What would it, you know, if we're talking about what will be implemented in the future with better file sharing and stuff. Do you have a path that you see this going down?
I can tell you right off the bat, we have a pretty firm idea of the next features we want to implement. One of which is the ability to send a file for someone who doesn't need an account, period. It would, in essence, be an obfuscated link that wasn't password protected. But it would be pulled off your box. So if I didn't want to put a Neobase account for you on mine, and I just wanted to get you the file, that's another way we want to be able to use this. So you can usually push out from there, right? We really want to be built-in media support. So if I post a video or an audio file to you, you can play it right there in your feed. We want these media files organized by file type. Kind of like, think of it as a built-in iPhotos, iTunes, but not a horrible bloated iTunes, right? That's the goal. Think back to what I said originally. I want a home jukebox file cabinet I could access inside and outside my network from any device securely, and I could connect it with my friends. So, as I joked with the developers, I was like, that's 3 sentences, right? And it took 3 years to get it all done. And the idea is simple, you know, we'll just create a custom version of Linux and design our own hardware, 3D print it. It's a lot of work. Yeah.
I had a question, as far as the hardware and software stacks, are you dual stack with IPv6 support yet, or is that something that will ship with?
I'm not afraid to say the words I don't know. And I'm happy to give you a card and get you a technical answer. My assumption is we're working on the latest Linux, and I'm assuming IPv6 is built into it. I'd be shocked if it's not. But I haven't drilled down, so I'm not going to tell you, well, yeah.
I guess it'll also be dependent upon the ISP as well.
Yeah. There is that. Once again, I'm a nerd, not a super nerd. That's the super nerd level, right? Then as far as my coding and abilities there. Anybody else?
How much does this device cost?
Good question. I can tell you this, it's going to be under $250 and probably more towards $200. We haven't finalized the price because we haven't finalized the COGS. Cost of goods sold for those who don't have to deal with that stuff.
I actually have a quick question. So, I guess this is a question that you would hope it wouldn't come up, but invariably it will. You know, relationships sour. How is unfriending on this thing handled?
Yeah, that's more complicated than you might think.
I actually was thinking it was kind of complicated. Which is why I asked
we call it federation. Okay, so every action, well, let's say you post something to us, Kevin and I, and I'm hosted on your Neobase, and he has his own. And I go through and I'm like, hey, that's a neat comment. So now we've got to get it to you and to him, all right? And then when he comments back or puts a smiley face on it, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes back and forth, right? So as I always say, your data never leaves your devices and the devices of those you share with, right? Because it is a push system. If you share a picture, thank you, Tracy, with me, it's going to push a copy to my Neobase.
And if I were to unfriend you, it would not nuke that copy on your
It would not nuke
Neobase.
that copy. Everything up until then would still be there. There's a whole bunch of, because if I start deleting it off of me, I have to go federate the deletions, and it's a whole mess, right? And in fact, you can think about this too. You think about, okay, we want to delete a post. Let's just not delete a post, not a friend. Let's say I share a movie with you, right? And the idea was that eventually you'll be able to just add that to your movie collection. But let's say I want to delete that movie because I watched it and it's taking up space on my Neobase. But does that mean that you should go out and erase it on everybody's Neobases who I shared it with? They may not have watched it. So you have to, one of the things I learned is every simple interaction is actually pretty complicated when you drill down into it. And so one of the things as of now, the way deletion works is when I hit, whoever created the post can delete it, and it goes and sends a request to delete that post. But if the person's not online or has saved the image or video some other way, it's not really deleted. So I'd have to go back and look exactly what all happens. When you delete a friend, it does not cleanse your history with that person. When you delete a post, it does federate the request to delete at this point in time. The request in the Neobase automatically does it. Later on, we're working in a system where you will be able to say, just delete it. Like the example is like, oh my God, what did I post last night? Delete, 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 right? Versus, I don't have space, delete. And those are two separate functions, and you have to really think them through before you, because they can.
But if I understand you right, you're more thinking of it, it's a deep delete for individual posts, but not a deep delete for a friendship.
Correct. Yes.
On the contrary, is it possible to give contributions a finite lifetime?
In essence, like a Snapchat or a Wicker or something like that. That is something we've talked about. If not,
Who else?
I was going to ask about space. You use it as a 1 terabyte now. Is that, and you wanted to bring it down to 500? It seems like you start compounding so many shares that you might not.
Yeah, well, that is, the deal is like, well, nobody wants to pay over $200, but they want a terabyte drive.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the USB port comes in. We are going to be implementing external additions to the storage, right? It's not just, I didn't mention that earlier. It will be in V1. It's not in the beta, but you will be able to add additional storage. So that kind of negates some of the need for having the internal. Honestly, at this point in time, it's not, we don't market it as a primary, what we call a primary storage device, or what the industry calls a primary storage device. It's a sharing device. And you'd be surprised how much space a terabyte is. You'd have to share a lot of files to start, even fill it up with 500 gig.
Have you guys looked into maybe doing anything similar to like views on a repository where you're not unnecessarily copying things in more places than they need to be?
I think that's in essence a federation question, and we have fine-tuned that, right? They only go to specifically who you share with. Whoever's Neobase, whatever you share goes to the Neobase that the people you're sharing with have accounts on. And that's where it stays, and it doesn't go anywhere else until they ask for it. So if they ask for it on their phone, they'll see it on their phone. If they ask for it on their Mac, they'll see it on their Mac.
So minimum population necessary to complete the transaction.
Right. There's no pushing things around. But there is a little bit of a strange question. Like, okay, so you're on a host account and you're on a host account, and you share something with him but not me, right? That creates, so there's some, because I shouldn't be able to see that, and I can't. So, but you're having to trade files from user to user on the same device.
Well, actually, that raises an interesting question. So you said we have the ability to Linux into our own devices. Could I sudo to see that interaction that's supposed to be private?
At this point, probably yes. So it was another argument for a hosted account, right?
In other words, you will definitely have more privacy with your own Neobase than being with somebody else's Neobase.
And by the way, if you don't have your own Neobase, the only person that can back up the Neobase is the owner. And so if you've lost access or something like that, we're not trying to force you to buy a Neobase, but we're trying to encourage you to get yours because
Reward you for buying.
Reward you, thank you. I mean, with the ability to have your own backups, the ability to add host accounts at will. But, to use an analogy, imagine back in the day being able to say, hey, do you have a fax machine? No? Okay, I'll loan you a virtual one, right? That's the problem we're facing right now. When we first talked about this, we didn't have multiple users on a Neobase, but there's something called the empty restaurant problem, right? How much fun is a restaurant when you're the first person there? I mean, there's no atmosphere, there's nothing. So then somebody thought, well, bingo. Great. Invite your friends to the restaurant. So that's how that extended out, right? We want people to use the system. The goal is to create a viable business and to create a safe and secure way for people to communicate. I'm hoping I can do both of those things. And we tried to make it as easy as possible to share through this thing, to let other people experience it. We'll see if it works. That's why they call it a startup. You're trying to start it up, right? And, there have been a lot of people that have had a lot of opinions, mostly positive about this. There's been skepticisms, there's been open source skepticisms, licensing. But people in general, they get the general, the intent, right? A lot of times actions, if you understand the intent, are interpreted differently. And one of the things we talked a lot about was like, if we're promising this to the consumer, we got to be damn careful every step of the way, because they're going to be waiting. They're going to be looking for how they kind of screw us. What's the gotcha, right? Well, there's not one, other than the fact that, the business, for this to really work and grow and be everything it can be, the business needs to keep chugging. So I highly encourage you to get your friends to buy Neobases. Yeah.
What does your home upload speed need to be to support this kind of thing?
Remarkably not that fast. We've had people, Matt, he had a beta, before he was sharing mine during the beta, he had one at home. Yeah. In fact, this was not even at my house for a long time. It was in San Francisco. And right now, I have not Google Fiber, AT&T Fiber, and I didn't pay the $100 extra so they wouldn't spy on me. But the experience is really when you're pushing, if you're not sharing big files, when I say big files, I'm talking 50, 100 megs, you're not going to really see it, right? Because most pics are pretty small, and we're optimizing the pictures for delivery in the background. Most people on a modern broadband connection with the modern FCC definition, which I think is 8.2 or 10.3, something like that. If you got 3 megs up, you're not having a problem. And you have a fiber connection, and wow, It's really amazing. But I mean, unfortunately I wiped it, but last week, it's been a fun life lately. I have my kid every other week, and I've been in San Francisco the weeks I don't have them. And last time I was going out there, I posted a pic of the online entertainment showing that I was over Albuquerque or something. Because I was able to open my laptop, get on the Wi-Fi, log into my Neobase, and have a conversation with my work partners right through my own Neobase. It was encrypted from the plane. I could have done it from the phone. So, you know, I'm not sure how I ran it. I've been talking for a long time. So, any other comments, questions?
Which encryption system are you using?
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna give you a card, email me. I'm gonna have to refer, in fact, my CTO, his 40th birthday is today, and I was like, great, the week we're going before testing, and you're out for your birthday. And he's in some canyon without reception. I was like, that's so awesome, I totally support you. And so I'm not diverting, and I just don't want to give you the wrong answer. We had this security view via Leviathan. Under SSH, if you don't know, I mean, it's very easy to say public-private key, but there are lots of different ways you can generate these things, right? To generate these keys. And that's what some of these questions have been about. There's some discrepancies, or some questions about how secure some of these different ways of generating these keys are. My understanding as the CEO, the CTO told me that we have addressed that, and I will get you the specifics. I'm happy to give you a card.
Did you have a web presence for the product yet?
Yeah, actually, if you go to neone.com, N-E-O-N-E, like neon with an E, in about 3 weeks, we're going to be forwarding that to neobase.com. When we first started this project, the company's called Neone, and we were going to call the social network Neone and the product a Neobase. People got confused by that, and so we're kind of simplifying the brand down to just Neobase. Everything's going to be under the Neobase name. But we had a brief Kickstarter this spring, but we didn't need the financing. There were reasons we didn't think it was going well. We pulled it. I don't think we're quite ready. But you'll see a ton of information on neone.com, and all of that's going to be rebranded in 3 weeks with Neobase. We're not, for example, we don't refer to it as a private social network anymore. It's a private communications hub. And there's lots of reasons for that. But when you talk to consumers, you want to imply value, and you don't want comparisons that are apt. So there's some fine tuning to the branding that's still going on, but all the information's accurate there. Anybody else? Right on. Well, I ran into John at an ACLU privacy event down at the AT&T Center, and I was really thrilled, Kevin, when you asked me. By the way, this is the first public demonstration I've given of this product. Right? I'm really so glad that goat we sacrificed to the gods, and because we really did have a very positive experience here. I appreciate the opportunity. I've welcomed all your questions. I mean, these are the main people I built this thing for, hoping you will spread it out to the people that don't understand it as well. So I want your feedback, I want your criticisms, I want your complaints, and we're going to be very, like I said, as open as we can be about this project. So I've got a bunch of cards up here, November 11th, when they go on sale, and if you're in early, you'll get one for Christmas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.